Can you believe it? Right in Pennsylvania, a state that was once a symbol of American history, industry, and civilization, there are areas where even the SWAT team dares not enter after 10 p.m. Behind the grand old buildings of Philadelphia, beyond the prestigious universities and the monuments that draw in millions of tourists, lie no-go zones that the authorities have quietly abandoned. Gone is the image of a thriving state. What's left are piles of trash, makeshift tents, and the hollow eyes of people who once lived lives just like ours. Both the security and healthcare systems have silently retreated, leaving behind a community in free fall, right in the heart of what was once the cradle of American democracy. In today's video, we'll take you deep into the darkest heart of Pennsylvania, a place now drowning in an unprecedented homeless crisis. And if you think it can't be that bad, wait until part 4 of this video. Some of the footage might haunt you for the rest of your life. Perhaps for many Americans, Pennsylvania is the brightest symbol of working-class America. When the streets of Pittsburgh, Bethlehem, and Erie are lit up all night because the 3 shifts in the factories are still in operation. When the morning factory whistle signals a steady workday, and dinner at the dining table is something no one has to worry about. People leave New Jersey, leave the expensive cities of the Northeast to come to Pennsylvania with calloused hands, a hard-working spirit, and the steadfast belief that in America, if you work hard, you will have a home, a stable life, and a future. That is why Pennsylvania has become one of the clearest embodiments of the American dream for decades. But then, as the economy shifted, factory jobs gradually disappeared, wages failed to keep up with the cost of living, and housing became a luxury. The American dream in Pennsylvania began to crack. As a result, more than 14,088 people in this state have been unable to stay under one roof. Even more frightening, that number continues to rise, silently and rapidly, especially after the pandemic. Because once the dream shatters, it's not just losing a home, but losing the very foundation to start anew. On the streets of Philadelphia, it is not difficult to encounter rows of makeshift tents stretching from block to block. The makeshift shelters made of plastic tarps, cardboard boxes, and old coats are pieced together to form a fragile home for those who once had a roof over their heads like everyone else. During the day, they huddle in the cold or the sweltering heat. At night, they curl up in hidden corners, hoping for a peaceful sleep without being chased away or disturbed. But all of that is just the tip of the iceberg, because there are thousands of others, especially women, children, and the elderly, living in a state of hidden homelessness. They don't sleep on the sidewalks, they don't pitch tents in the parks, but they also don't have a real home to return to. Some people live off their friends' houses, while others temporarily stay in old RVs parked by the roadside. A bit luckier, some people still have enough money to rent a rundown room to try to hold on for a few more nights. On paper, they are not considered homeless, and because of that definitional loophole, they do not receive support like the homeless do. They quietly sink deep into the shadows of the system, where those who need help the most are often the ones most easily forgotten. And so, they are trapped in a vortex. No home, no support, no way out, endlessly spiraling in misery and despair. So, how many more people have to sleep under the bridge? How many more dreams must rot in the freezing winter in Pennsylvania before we truly recognize the severity of this crisis? If you think zombies only exist in movies, set foot in Kensington. This place is nothing short of a living graveyard, where people still breathe, still move, but no longer live as human beings. In some corners of Philadelphia, especially in the Kensington area, people no longer call this place a residential neighborhood. It resembles a wasteland in the heart of the city, where time stands still and the shuffling footsteps carry no hope. You will see people quietly sitting on the sidewalk, with vacant eyes, emaciated bodies, and repetitive behaviors as if they have lost the ability to perceive the life around them. Many residents describe that scene as if stepping into a zombie land, where people still breathe, but no longer live. They merely exist, quietly and listlessly, as if they have lost their souls, leaving behind only empty shells. They wander through the alleys, sit motionless under the streetlights, and sleep soundly behind the bus stops. No longer individuals with names or personal stories. They are just shadows that society has learned to ignore. It's heartbreaking that none of the people wandering out there actually chose this life. No one grows up dreaming of living on the sidewalk, enduring the cold of winter, or fighting for every meal. But then a small incident, losing a job, losing a home, losing the last support, is enough to throw them off the trajectory of life. And then, just like that, every door closed, and they gradually lost the chance to start over, or even to continue living as a human being. What makes people feel even more heartbroken is the way society looks at them. They are no longer seen as part of the community, but rather as symbols of failure, danger, or worse, trash that needs to be cleaned up. In some areas, they install anti-lying benches, spread sharp stones under bridges, and set up speakers that emit unpleasant sounds all night, all just to push these people further away, hide them, or even erase them from sight. But hiding them doesn't mean they disappear. They are still there, increasing in number, becoming more and more desperate. And the frightening thing is not that they exist like that, but that we have gotten used to seeing them like that, without feeling anything at all. People call them zombies, those lost figures, wandering aimlessly among the bustling streets. But if we ourselves are also passing by them as if they do not exist, if we avoid their gaze as if avoiding something unclean, then is there really any difference? When indifference has eroded compassion, perhaps it is not only them, but also us who are losing our humanity. Are we ourselves becoming zombie citizens too? Only differing in that we are a bit luckier because we still have a roof to return to, unlike those who are curled up on the sidewalks. So in the end, who are the real zombies? Is it the people wandering on the sidewalk, or is it us, those who are still alive, but have stopped feeling the pain of another person? Do we have enough courage to look straight into those faces and see ourselves in them before it's too late? If there is anywhere in America that makes you wonder whether this is still the real world, it is Kensington, Pennsylvania. The locals call this place the Lost Land, where, in broad daylight, you will see dozens of people wandering, stumbling as if they have lost their way. Some people sit on the roadside, hunched over in silence, while others lie scattered under the bridges, their eyes vacant, as if they have been swept away from the flow of life. They were all once innocent children, once had dreams, once had families. Now they are just walking corpses in Kensington. Here, the concept of concealment seems to no longer exist. What was once considered the scourge of society has now become a daily sight. The police rarely show up. The people around are gradually becoming helpless. And the most terrifying thing is the silence. A silence thick as fog, enveloping everything. A resident who lost her sister in this very neighborhood recounted, "Here, someone falls every single day. Just during the most recent holiday weekend, there were 50 fights and 11 people seriously affected." The police came to clean up for a while, and then everything went back to normal. Like a house that, no matter how thoroughly it is cleaned, cannot rid itself of the darkness. In Kensington, those trying to survive under the bridge or in the narrow alleys often refer to this place as their private space. Because they have been driven away from everywhere else. Here, outsiders rarely dare to step in. and those inside have no way to step out. But the most heartbreaking thing is not the self-destructive behaviors, but the chilling familiarity with tragedy. A man collapsed right in the middle of the street from an overdose, was resuscitated twice, and then continued to find ways to repeat that cycle. The person who saved him said, with a sigh, "We witness that every day." They don't thank you. They are just angry because they were pulled back to reality. No one here really chose this path, but they grew up with trauma or experienced irreparable loss. They only learned one thing: how to temporarily escape the pain. Some people avoid their loved ones, not because they don't love them, but because they don't want the people they love to witness their collapse. No one needs more judgment. What they need are the basic things that society has failed to provide: mental health support, a chance to start over, a safe place to stay, and above all, someone who believes they are still valuable, still deserving of living as a human being. But it seems that the system has chosen to turn a blind eye. Those who stumble will be pushed out of sight, out of negotiations, and off the growth map. Kensington is not just a problem for Pennsylvania. It is a mirror reflecting the profound disconnection in modern society. When the failure in housing, healthcare, and humanitarian policies accumulates for long enough, does it create such forgotten lands, where people who once were someone now remain only in silence? Have you ever wondered what happens when those who are supposed to be in charge of safety hesitate to step into their own neighborhood in the city? In Kensington, right in the heart of Philadelphia, that is no longer a hypothesis. It has become a reality. There are streets that even the SWAT team chooses to stay away from. Not because of a lack of equipment, but because they know well. That place is no longer a safe zone, no longer a community, but a grey area where even the security forces are unsure if they can step out safely. But when the authorities withdrew, leaving a void in silence, the people were forced to fend for themselves. Meanwhile, the public support system is overwhelmed, or worse, frozen. The shelter centres have intake limits that are far too low compared to the demand. Programs for housing support, food, psychological counselling, etc. are either budget cut or operated in such a bureaucratic manner that those in need can never access them. Residents living near the affected areas continuously cry out for help, but the petitions, reports, and requests gradually disappear, or worse, are neglected as if this were an inevitable part of modern urban life. And it is precisely in that context that we begin to witness strange reversals. Those who were once tax-paying workers now have become a social issue. The neighborhoods that were once the pride of the city are now avoided like forbidden zones. And those who once believed in the American dream now have to fight to survive each day and pray to see the dawn of tomorrow. Pennsylvania was once a land of enduring dreams, where immigrants, white people, people of African descent, and Native Americans together built a new life with their hands and minds. But now, what remains is not a land of opportunity, but a mirror reflecting the fragmentation of a system once expected to leave no one behind. So, if an entire state that was once a symbol of diligence and perseverance is now powerless against this crisis, what awaits communities with even fewer resources? And a more pressing question: when we wait for the government to intervene, but the support never comes, is it time for us to ask ourselves, what can we do before our own neighborhood falls into darkness? In Kensington, and many other areas of Philadelphia, the most heartbreaking thing is not just the presence of homeless people wandering the sidewalks, but the coexistence of two worlds simultaneously living in hell. On one side are the people who no longer have a roof over their heads, no longer have hope, having to pitch tents on the sidewalks to shelter overnight. The other side consists of residents who are holed up in their own homes, but with tightly shut windows, watchful eyes, and a simmering fear that is never named in words. The The surrounding residents do not hate the wanderers, but they are afraid to confront the unutterable despair of those who have nowhere to return to. They fear the sudden screams in the night, the unknown objects falling outside the backyard, the fact that their children have to pass through a stretch of road they can no longer control every day. Some people have shared, "I know they didn't choose this life, but we also don't want to choose to live among garbage and danger every day. But we also don't want to choose to live among garbage and danger every day." As for the homeless, they also wish for nothing more than a non-judgmental glance. As for the homeless, they only hope for a non-judgmental glance. But each passing day, instead of hope, what they receive more of is alienation. Even though no one says it out loud, the looks, the avoidance, and the new barriers erected around the park all implicitly tell them, you are no longer considered a part of this place. In areas like Kensington, the atmosphere seems to thicken, not just because of the heat, the cold, or the dirt, but because of the feeling of being trapped, stuck between waiting and giving up, between enduring and helplessness. And when both the housed and the unhoused feel abandoned, the line between victims and the rest becomes more blurred than ever. Both sides, the homeless and the stable residents, are living in different forms of hell. On one side is the ultimate deprivation. One side is fear and mental exhaustion. But the common point is that no one feels they belong here anymore. So if both those with homes and those without homes feel unwelcome in their own communities, then what does home mean anymore? Amid the heavy darkness of a Pennsylvania gradually losing itself, there are still small lights quietly existing. Not enough to illuminate an entire city, but enough to preserve the remaining humanity in those who have fallen to the depths. And Safe Harbor Shelter in Easton is one of those small lights. Safe Harbor is not an extravagant center. It doesn't have a big sign, a generous budget, nor has it been featured on television as a comprehensive solution. But that very place is doing what the entire system sometimes fails to do, keeping people from completely falling apart. Located on a quiet street, Safe Harbor resembles a small old house. But for those who have had to sleep under bridges, shelter from the rain, in bus stations, or been chased away from parking lots in the middle of the night, this place is a whole different world. There, they have a bed, simple but clean. They have a hot meal, a friendly greeting, and a look that sees them as human beings, not as a social issue. Safe Harbor doesn't stop at just providing shelter. They collaborate with social organizations to provide the homeless with medical care, assistance with identification documents, and even guidance on job applications or finding rental housing. They understand that a roof over their heads is just the first step. What people need more is a hand to pull them out of the darkness, someone who believes they deserve a fresh start. But despite their dedication and efforts, Safe Harbor cannot bear it all. This place only has a few dozen beds, while the entire city has thousands of people in need of shelter. There are winter nights, when the waiting list is so long that the staff have to refuse, even knowing that just one night sleeping outdoors could be the last night for an elderly person, a pregnant woman, or a young man with psychological trauma. The pressure becomes even heavier as resources become increasingly scarce. Funding has decreased, operational costs have increased, and staff are exhausted. Not a few people in the Safe Harbor team once considered giving up. But then they stayed. Not for the salary, not for the fame, but because they understood that if there were no places like Safe Harbor, there would be nowhere else. For those who once experienced a golden era in America, when all you needed was hard work to have everything, places like Safe Harbor are proof that compassion still exists, even in a very small corner of society. But if even such bright spots are gradually fading away, then what will be left? A society that turns its back on those who once contributed to its construction. An America where you can work your whole life, but end up dying cold on the sidewalk because no one sees you anymore? Do we, those of us who still have a home to return to, have the courage to look at places like Safe Harbor and ask ourselves, if tomorrow we find ourselves in that situation, who will reach out first? And if no one does, then perhaps, starting from now, we should be the ones to begin. There was a time when Pennsylvania was a place people came to rebuild their lives, even starting from scratch. But now, more and more people have to leave, also with empty hands. Not because they lack determination, but because a system can no longer support those who stumble. A state that was once a symbol of America where hard work leads to success is now struggling with a harsh reality. Hard work is no longer a ticket to a decent life. The homelessness crisis is not just a sign of economic recession. It is a manifestation of a society that is losing its way. When the number of homeless people increases each year, when many families no longer dare to dream of owning a home, when rental prices far exceed wage growth, it cannot be solely blamed on personal choices. This is the consequence of decades-long decisions. A lack of affordable housing, widening income gaps, welfare cuts, and stagnation in policies supporting the public. Pennsylvania is not alone in this crisis. But what makes it a symbol of collapse is that this very place was once a model of stability. If a state with an industrial tradition, close-knit communities, and a spirit of self-reliance like Pennsylvania is also shaking, then it shows that the root of the problem no longer lies in each locality, but in the entire system. So, what is the way out? The solution cannot be just to set up a few more tents or open a few more temporary shelters. Those actions, although necessary, are just like putting a band-aid on a festering wound. What Pennsylvania and the entire United States needs is a profound transformation, from policy thinking to the way we perceive people. We need a system that not only patches up the consequences, but also prevents the collapse from the root. From affordable housing, practical vocational training, to networks of mental and legal support for those struggling to stay afloat. And above all, we need a revival of compassion in society, where people do not just see each other as numbers or roles, but through the eyes of one human being to another. Because if one day we ourselves, or our children, are pushed to the margins, who will still have the heart to step back, to see us as someone who once had a name, once had dreams, and once had a home? The future of Pennsylvania does not only lie in the hands of the government, but in the choices of each citizen, to turn away in silence or to start making a change. What will you choose? Pennsylvania was once a symbol of a hard-working America, where every drop of sweat was valued and every family had the opportunity to rise. But now, amidst the streets filled with tents and lost gazers, the question is no longer how to help them escape, but why did we let them fall? What, when people who once had a home now have to sleep in the cold? When neighborhoods that were once filled with laughter are now only echoes of the wind and indifference? The crisis is not just on the streets. It has infiltrated our collective soul, turning compassion into a luxury. So when will a nation built by the community stop turning its back on those who need the community the most? And if this indifference continues, who among us will be the next to be forgotten? What do you think about the homelessness crisis in Pennsylvania? Please share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel and stay updated with our latest videos. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video. This video is based on reports, data, and information publicly released from press sources, non-governmental organizations, and statistical data from state authorities. All opinions, analyses, and arguments in the video aim to educate, critique society, and raise community awareness, not to criticize any specific individual, organization, or government. We respect all differing viewpoints and encourage viewers to comment in a civilized and responsible manner.